Okay, so male reproduction. So this is a mid-sagittal cut. So hopefully you can see all the parts. Okay, so here's the bladder to kind of give you a point of reference. Okay, the pubic symphysis is on the front. Okay, here are ureters coming in. Okay, then up here we're going to have the ampulla of the vas deferens or the ductus deferens, the seminal vesicles, okay, the ejaculatory duct, and that's going to go through the prostate gland. Okay, the bulbourethral gland is outside here. Okay, and then we'll have the urethra. So there's several parts of the urethra. There is the penile urethra, the prostatic urethra. Let's see. Anus. We'll talk about the different tubes here in a minute. The erectile tissue. Okay, here's the epididymis. It sits on top of the testes, and then the scrotum is this whole area down here. So hopefully that's okay. We're going to go through the parts one at a time. Okay, so the scrotum. So why is the scrotum where it is? Okay, so the idea behind the scrotum is that the sperm need a lower temperature, so 3 degrees Celsius lower than body temperature, in order to mature properly. So lower than body temp. Okay, lower than body temperature in order for the sperm to develop properly. Okay, so the layers of the scrotum, so we have skin, then we'll have superficial fascia, and then we have the dartos muscle, which is a layer of smooth muscle. And what the dartos does is it's going to cause wrinkling of the scrotum. Okay, so it's going to keep the scrotum warm or cold depending on what the temperature is. Okay, now the spermatic cord is going to connect the scrotum and the testes, okay, with what's inside the body. Okay, so it has the cremaster muscle, which this will raise or lower testes. Okay, the fascia that's around it, the ductus deferens, which they used to call the vas deferens. That's the duct for the sperm to travel down through. Okay, then there are testicular arteries, veins, there's going to be nerves, there's lymph supply, and then there's this thing called the pampiniform plexus. The pampiniform plexus, it's this extensive network of veins. They surround the testicular arteries, and they cool the blood. Okay, they're kind of like a counter current temperature exchange, heat exchange. Okay, so they're going to keep the blood going to the testes cool. Okay, so it's a cooling system for the blood that's going to the testes so that you don't fry the sperm. Okay, now the inguinal canal I'll show you on the next picture. Okay, so if we look at this picture, okay, so from the inside of the body out, okay, so here's inguinal ligament, okay, and then inguinal canal is right in here. Okay, so it's the space where the spermatic cord, where all of this passes through the body cavity, the body wall. Okay, so it goes through there, so you'd have two of them. So it's where the spermatic cord passes through the body wall. So if somebody had an inguinal hernia, it would be a weakness or a bulging there. The cremaster muscle we talked about, dartos muscle. The raphe is just the seam in between the two testes. The epididymis, we talked about, testicular nerve. The pampiniform plexus are the veins. Ductus deferens, let me make it a different color. There's the ductus deferens. Okay, it's like the vas deferens, that's how the sperm are going to travel through. So I think we kind of got it all. I don't, you know, for me, you don't have to know all of these fascia. I just want you to know the basic structures and what they do. Okay, so here is a cadaver that's been dissected so you could see everything. So here's this, they're calling it the superficial inguinal ring. Okay, so that's where everything is going to come through. Okay. All right, so how does the pampiniform plexus work? So basically what happens is the blood is traveling to the testes from the artery, so they're coming away from the heart and to the testes. If it's 37 degrees, it's too hot. So there are veins that are returning from the testes, and they're kind of wrapped around this artery, and they're going to cool it down. So the blood cools as it goes to the testes, but then it's going to warm up and take heat from the artery as it goes back to the body. Okay, so the testes, so sac-like extension of the peritoneum. Okay, it's covered by a layer called the tunica vaginalis. And then underneath that is the tunica albuginea, which is a white fibrous capsule. Okay, the albuginea is going to divide the testes into lobules. Okay, so there's about 200 to 300 little lobules within the testes, each one. Okay, now within the lobules, we're going to have seminiferous tubules. Now, in those seminiferous tubules, that's where the sperm are going to be formed. Okay, so we have germ cells, and they're going to give rise to sperm. Okay, and then we also have cells in there that are called sustentacular cells. The sustentacular cells, they call them non-dividing support cells. So they're kind of like nurse cells to help the sperm develop. Okay, so their job is to take care of the sperm, their sperm support. Okay, now, within here, okay, the sustentacular cells, they are going to produce, okay, androgen binding hormone. Okay. We'll talk about that. They produce inhibin, and we'll talk about that. They're going to supply the sperm with nutrients. They're going to remove the excess cytoplasm, because the sperm starts out as this big round cell, and we need to get it streamlined down to be something like this. Okay, the sustentacular cell also provides this thing called the blood-testes barrier. Okay, so the testes, well, not the testes, the sperm are genetically different than all the cells in your body, and so are the eggs, okay, because of meiosis. They're different. They're genetically different. If your immune system can get to the sperm, they're going to recognize that they're not normal, and they'll try to destroy it. Okay, so if they destroy them, then that's no good. Okay. Okay, so here's a picture of the testes, and then here is a microscope slide of it. Okay, so here's the spermatocord coming out of the body. Okay, this is the ductus deferens. Okay, so if somebody has a vasectomy, that's what they're going to cut. Okay, so vasectomy, that's what they're cutting, and they cut it up closer to the body cavity. Okay, now, so ductus deferens. Okay, now, if we come down through here, okay, let's see. So it's going to come down this way. Okay, and then here's the tail of the epididymis. Okay, and then the body of the epididymis, the middle part. Okay, and then these afferent ductules. Okay, and those ductules are going to come over here, and they're actually going to connect the epididymis with the testes. Okay, now in here, here's a lobe or a lobule. Okay, and they're divided by septums. Okay, and in them are the seminiferous tubules. Okay, that's where the sperm are going to develop. Okay, the tunica albuginea is this layer on the outside. The vaginalis is the outside layer. Okay, so basically what happens in these tubes, okay, so here if we take a seminiferous tubule and we dissect it and we look at it under a microscope, and this is the cross section through it. Okay, so if we look at it from the outside and we're going to go in, okay, this whole thing is the seminiferous tubule. This is the middle of it. This is the lumen. Okay, so this is where the sperm are going to flow. So what happens is out here, these are spermatogonia. And then as the sperm develop, they travel in towards the middle. Okay, so the more mature sperm, okay, are going to be closer to the middle so that they can go out the hole and be ejected. Okay, interstitial cells are found in between the seminiferous tubules. Okay, so they're in between seminiferous tubules. Well, that's thunder. Can you hear the thunder? In between those tubules, that's where the interstitial cells are. Let's see. The sustentacular cells, they're going to be in the tubules with the sperm as they're developing. I hope that makes sense. Okay, now, how do hormones regulate this whole process? Okay, so we have two different colors of arrows. So some of them are going to be red, okay, and some of them are going to be green. So if it's green, it's stimulating. If it's red, it's inhibiting. Okay, so puberty. Puberty comes along. Okay, first thing that happens is the gonadotropic releasing hormone. Oops, let me go here. Gonadotropic releasing hormone is secreted by the hypothalamus. Okay, so we got number one. And it's going to go down, it's going to go to the anterior pituitary. Okay, and then the anterior pituitary is going to secrete follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, so FSH and LH. Okay, luteinizing hormone is going to go to the interstitial cells, okay, and it's going to tell them to release testosterone. Okay, FSH is going to come in, and it's going to stimulate the sustentacular cells, and it's going to say you need to release androgen binding protein. Okay, androgen binding protein is going to bind to the androgens, okay, to the testosterone, and it's going to make them more hydrophilic so that the testosterone concentration stays high in the testes. Okay, now, when we get over here, so number 3, where's number 3? Where is number 3? Up here. Okay, so androgen binding protein, okay, binds with the testosterone, okay, gives libido, okay, also stimulates secondary sex characteristics, so start looking like a boy. Okay, as testosterone increases, what will happen is, okay, so it's going to stimulate testosterone, it's going to cause you to make sperm, okay, so that's a good thing, so we want to go that way, we want that to happen. But we don't want an excess of testosterone, okay? So we don't want too much testosterone. Too much testosterone is toxic. So what happens is testosterone has a negative feedback loop. So it'll feed back and it'll inhibit the release of gonadotropin releasing hormone, okay? And it'll actually cause the production of inhibin. Okay, and inhibin will come back, okay, and it'll stop the release of GnRH, and it'll stop the release of FSH and LH. So too much testosterone is not going to make you make more sperm. It'll actually slow down the production of it. So there's like a homeostatic mechanism in place to keep everything level. Okay, now spermatogenesis, so how do we make sperm? So to make sperm, okay, so it starts at puberty, okay, and the primordial germ cell, okay, so primordial is like, this is the cell that you're born with that could become sperm, okay, is called a spermatogonia. That is 2N, so that means it has 46 chromosomes. Okay, now what happens is we have to go through meiosis to form sperm. Okay, so the first thing we form are primary spermatocytes. Okay, and that's when we go through meiosis 1. And you can think primary is 1, right? The first, and meiosis 1 is the first. So they both have 1s in them. Okay, and then secondary spermatocytes, okay, are N. So that means they've gone through meiosis 2. Okay, so it's 2. You have the number 2 with that one. Okay, so what happens then is that these will develop and they'll grow a tail, they'll lose a lot of cytoplasm, they'll start to form the acrosome, the parts of the sperm, and they become a spermatid. Okay, and then the spermatid continues to develop, and that goes through spermiogenesis, and we end up with the sperm. Okay, so the spermatid is round, and then it develops into a sperm, which is not round. Okay, so here's a picture that's showing spermatogenesis, and there's kind of a lot going on here. But what I want you to see, okay, so this is the seminiferous tubule. Okay, so that's what this whole thing is. Here's the interstitial cells. Okay, and they're producing testosterone. Remember, they're testosterone producers. That's where it comes from. Okay, now, if we start here at 46, that's the spermatogonia. And then we're going to divide, and we have a primary spermatocyte. And then we divide again. Okay, we go through meiosis 2, and we have these little spermatids. Okay, and then they continue to go through spermatogenesis. Okay, and then we end up with sperm in the lumen. So the most mature sperm are closest to the hole. Okay, and then here's the parts of the sperm. So they have an acrosome, which is the cap, and that's got enzymes in it that will penetrate the cervix. It's got the nucleus where the DNA is going to be. There's mitochondria so that it can move, in the tail, the flagellum. So you can kind of see how it changes shape as it develops. Okay, now spermatoducts and the flow of sperm. Okay, so we have efferent ductules. Okay, so these are, and I know you're going to look at these on the model, but let's just go through. So 12 small ciliated ducts. They collect sperm from the ret testes and they transport it to the epididymis. Okay, so they're going to go from the ret testes to the epididymis. Okay, the epididymis is a long coiled duct. It's on the back of the testes. This is where the sperm are going to mature. Okay, so that's why it's important, and where they're going to be stored. Okay, so sperm can last about 60 days. So they're fertile for 60 days. Okay, if they're not ejaculated, they're just going to break down and get reabsorbed. Okay, they don't accumulate in there for the rest of your life or anything. They just get broken down. Okay, now the ductus deferens. Okay, this is the vas deferens. So this is the tube. It's smooth muscle. Okay, 45 centimeters long. It goes from the scrotum through the inguinal canal to the posterior surface of the bladder. Okay, so it goes through peristalsis during an orgasm to transport the sperm. Okay, the ejaculatory duct is a short little duct. It's formed from the ductus deferens and the seminal vesicle, and it's going to go through the prostate, and it's going to dump into the urethra, and then we'll have the urethra. Okay, so here's the picture. Okay, so out here, okay, so epididymis, which is where sperm are going to mature. Okay, so they're formed in here. They sit here. They mature and are stored. Okay, they're going to travel down the ductus deferens. Okay, and then they're going to go through the seminal vesicle. Well, they're going to come down through here, through the ampulla, and then the seminal vesicle is actually going to dump secretions in. So these two things are going to come together. Okay, then it's going to go pass through the prostate. Okay, the bulbourethral gland will dump its secretions in. Okay, and there's 2 of those. There's only 1 prostate. Everything else is paired. Okay, and then This will pass out through the penis. Okay, now, let's see. 3 parts of the urethra. So we have a prostatic urethra. Okay, we have membranous urethra where it leaves the body wall, and then the penile, or they're calling it the spongy urethra. Okay, now the spongy tissue, okay, that has full blood vessels, or the erectile tissue. Okay, there's, if you did a cross section, okay, it would kind of look like this. Okay, so the corpus spongiosum is going to be right around the urethra. Okay, so if that's the urethra, corpus spongiosum is around it. Okay, so that's that. Okay, and it's right here, looking at it this way. Okay, now corpus cavernosa is out here. Okay, and there's 2 of them, so they're actually corpora. So there's one here and one there. It's dry. Okay, so the sperm, as it gets to here, it's not in liquid until it gets to the seminal vesicles. Okay, so seminal vesicles. Okay, so accessory glands. So how does the sperm get out? Okay, so the sperm, it's actually going to dump secretions in. Okay, so seminal vesicles, they're behind the bladder. They dump into the ejaculatory duct, and what they secrete is a viscous, whitish yellow alkaline fluid that's got prostaglandins and fructose in it. So prostaglandins are hormones that actually cause uterine contractions. Okay, so why would that be important? That's important because if you want the sperm to get into the uterus, right, and for the eggs to be fertilized, you need some help getting it there. Okay, prostate gland. Okay, so the prostate gland is below the bladder. Okay, so it surrounds the urethra. Okay, and then the ejaculatory duct is in it. Okay, so I have 2 by 4 by 3 centimeters. The prostate gland, we only have one of those, right? Surrounds urethra. So if somebody has problems with their prostate gland, frequently they have problems urinating, okay, because the prostate gland surrounds it, and if it swells or enlarges, right, it surrounds the urethra, makes it hard to pee. Okay, so the prostate gland secretes milky fluid, slightly acidic. It's got citric acid in it, seminal plasmin. So it kind of allows the sperm to move, and it's also got protein, PSA. PSA is the stuff that they test for when they're testing for prostate cancer. Okay, then we also have 2 bulbourethral glands. Okay, now these are near the bulb of the penis. They dump into the penile urethra, and this is the lubricating fluid. So this is like the stuff that comes out first when somebody ejaculates. So it's the pre-semen, okay? All of these things are going to dump in with the sperm to make it semen. Okay, now the parts of the penis. So the root, the body, the glans, penis, this is the head. Okay, the erectile bodies, we just talked about those, corpora cavernosa, 1 corpus spongiosum. The root attaches the body to the penis, or the penis to the body, okay. The bulb attaches the bulbospongiosum muscle, and then the crust attaches to the pubic arch. So there's a picture of that. I hope all that makes sense, and you've probably heard it all before.